What's up, everyone? Welcome to Thursday Night Live with Theo. I am super hyped to get into this once again. So excited about another dope entrepreneur that we're going to have on tonight. Like I mentioned to you guys before, amazing things in their respective industries. And this entrepreneur that we're going to feature tonight, he's doing some amazing things from just his business, but just thinking about it from a generational standpoint. Really super excited to talk to him as well. So we're going to get right into it today, guys. We love to talk to super interesting entrepreneurs. So as soon as he joins, we're going to get right into it, guys, and talk a little bit about what he's doing as an entrepreneur. For those that don't know, Thursday Night Live with Theos is basically me as an entrepreneur talking to other entrepreneurs about how they built their businesses, how they're looking to scale them and grow them in this new area and really guide them on what the next steps are. And, we talk about what steps they're doing to grow their business models for the future. So definitely super excited to talk to different entrepreneurs in this process. So definitely we're going to go live here in a second. Um, so definitely, guys. So we're gonna go here in a few minutes. See if Mr. Sean will join here in a second. So we'll go super fast here um, as we move forward. But for those who don't know, okay, here we go. Here we go. Hello, Sean. Can you hear me?
Hey, what's going on? Let's switch this camera around. All
All
right.
right, there you are. How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing outstanding. How about yourself?
Oh man, blessed and highly favored. How are you doing?
And then right to hear.
Good, good, good. Hey, thanks for joining, man. This is Thursday Night Live. I talk to dope entrepreneurs and talking about the wonderful things that they're doing in their spaces and their industries. And I know you and I connected at InvestFest a couple months ago and just really impressed about what you're building, not just for yourself, but generationally. So we're going to get right into it. So, Sean, tell me a little bit about your business that you're building in the industry, and then talk a little bit about how you're imparting that information to your kids in the next generation.
Absolutely. My wife and I, we run multiple companies and actually come from a long lineage of entrepreneurs. My family actually owned the first African American owned hotels here in the Atlanta area during the civil rights era. Both my parents owned companies. My wife now own multiple companies. And of course, as you said, apples just don't fall far from the tree. So I have two kid entrepreneurs as well. My daughter Kennedy, my son Caden. And my wife and I, we pretty much specialize in consulting with 6, 7, 8 figure entrepreneurs who's looking to build, heal, and grow their business.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. No, that's amazing. You said you came. I love this. Don't really talk to too many entrepreneurs that have a legacy of entrepreneurship. My grandfather was an entrepreneur in a small town in Illinois called Pembroke. He did everything. Contractor. He was doing everything you can imagine, building houses, and he was the mayor of the town. And so I guess I got it from him. Talk a little bit about that, just seeing that so young and understanding what it meant to be an entrepreneur when a lot of us couldn't even spell that back in the day. But talk a little bit about how did that impart what your parents brought into you, and then obviously what you're still to your kids. What are some of the things that they did around you, habits they created to show you the importance of being an entrepreneur?
Gotcha. One of the biggest things was exposure. I can't express how important exposure is. See, when kids are little, we're like a white blank canvas. Anything that we do and or say is like a swipe of the brush on the canvas. So kids tend to build their self images between the ages of 3 and 5. So once we get to that age, we have to be able to step back and look at that canvas and we have to ask ourselves, did I paint a Picasso or did I paint a nightmare? And it's all based on the exposure that you get. So growing up, my dad would always take me to business meetings, conferences. I would hear my mom on the phone conducting business with different accounts that we had. So I was acclimated to business at a very early age, and it just sunk in. Same thing we did with our kids. We just put them in the car, take them to chamber of commerce meetings, take them to business events, and they just fit in like regular CEOs that they were. And they just start acclimating to the environment. And they would start asking, listen, I heard you guys talk about dividends. I heard you talk about rate of returns. Heard you talk about legacy wealth. What is all this stuff? So if we just exposed it to them and showed it to them in real time, he just became second nature. And one of the other things I want to point out to you too is that when I was growing up, we would have family meetings, and we still do that now, where you just pick maybe the third Sunday of the month and just sit down and really talk about the dynamics of the household to the entire family. A lot of times people think it's taboo to talk about family finances to kids and so forth. But we just always felt it important to just I always say, if you treat kids like kids, you'll get kid like behavior. If you treat kids like adults, you'll get adult like behavior while still maintaining the kid.
It's insightful. I like that. Having connection, treating kids as if they're adult thinking individuals, getting exposure. Those are some of the key lessons that you've had, but also you give them to your kid. And I'm taking those to heart. My kids are seeing me doing podcasting and different events. I do healthcare technology sales. And so they see me on the call with individuals. But to your point, I would love to bring them at an Invest Fest conference because to your point, that exposure is really relevant. And so that's so key. Wow. Typically we talk about how did you get started entrepreneurship, but since it was so imparted into your DNA, it doesn't seem like there was any other choice. Did you work for, just curious, did you work for anyone before you started your own business or you just knew this is the journey for me and my
Yeah,
career?
I get the typical choices that most kids get in high school. My dad told me when you graduate high school, either go to college, get a job, or go to the military. Didn't want to go to school anymore, so that was out. I don't like being told what to do, so didn't want to do the job thing. So I took the military route, went to the United States Air Force. 4 years there. When I got out, I was a deputy sheriff here in DeKalb County actually for quite some time, but I started progressing out of that at the same time. So I learned how to burn the candle at both ends. So while I was still in law enforcement, I was be studying, for which I ultimately started my first company, which was my real estate company. And that way I was able to segue out of corporate or 9 to 5 and just go full fledged entrepreneurship. And that was back in 97.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then never look back after that. Thank you for your service, number one, and what you did for your country. Appreciate that. And then obviously giving back to the community. And then from sheriff standpoint, and then obviously getting into the real estate and kind of going to that route. And then from there, it looks like you moved into all these different arenas, right? Is that correct? Real estate opened the door. And then what did you see from that aspect when you saw different opportunities? As an entrepreneur, you're looking for always different opportunities, different areas that people need help with. What did you see as you built your real estate empire, as you started building your other businesses?
Gotcha. If I back up just a little bit, when I was in law enforcement, I realized very quickly that I was making my physical ability. So I said, listen, if something happens to me or if the X aspect that happened, I have to figure out what am I going to do financially for my family. So that's what me got my wheels spurting. I had a good friend of mine named Jeff. He was a police officer also. But Theo, I noticed that Jeff was driving a little differently and living in different neighborhoods. And I knew didn't sustain the income we were making law with me. So I said, hey, listen, what are you doing? So he introduced me into real estate. And then that was the fork in the road, if you will, where I really started seeing so many different opportunities. I started saying, you know what? I can live in better homes. I can live in different communities. I can have better options for my kids. And so that's when I really started focusing on the three things that changed for me was I changed what I read, I changed what I associated with, and I changed how I use my time. And I started seeing different doors of opportunity open. I was able to get into rooms that your so-called education may not have gotten you in, but relationships got
Mhm.
in. And that's when I started looking at different opportunities that would be able to create sustainable income that could become legacy income that I can also pass down to my kids.
I love that. You talk about this reading, relationships, and really getting your exposure to these new ideas because obviously you do better if you know better, right? A lot of folks don't know enough, right? Don't are not exposing themselves and probably a little afraid to even expose themselves to more. Likewise, saw my grandfather obviously be an entrepreneur, but like you, I was going the corporate route. I was in corporate America for 20 years. But in the back of my mind, I always saw that the entrepreneurs moved a little bit differently. They weren't constrained. So constrictions working for corporate America and other companies is great. But as we all know, there's a ceiling
Well,
and you'll bump your head against that ceiling and you realize, you know what, I have more potential capacity. And that's what I realized years ago when I started this path. So yeah, exposure is so key to that. Really what drove me, I always tell people when you think about the entrepreneur journey, think about, what's driving you, placement, like where you place yourself in the entrepreneur space. And then thinking about promotion, like how do you promote your abilities and skills and services to the marketplace? Those three P's. And that's what I did with my technology company was my daughter had an issue from a healthcare standpoint. And I said, you know what? There could be a better way of how she could see the doctor. And so that became that passion, figuring out who needs it, the placement in the market, and then finally creating the product and to promote the product. So yeah, that exposure is so key to your point. So let's pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about like branding. One thing that attracted me to your booth at InvestFest was how clear your branding was, especially with your kids there and talking about their product line. Talk to me about the marketing aspect of being an entrepreneur and standing out in a crowded marketplace.
As you said, branding is key. But unfortunately, so many times, particularly people in our community, we focus so much on other people's brand. But it's not necessarily one of my mentors, but Dr. People said, "You got about something at the point." And your last name is a brand in itself. If you're coming to our home, we have our crest all over the house, whether it's on the floors, on the walls. We have big crests over the front door, the floor mats coming into the house, towels, face racks, everything. Branding is important because it first identifies the why business. Typically, matter of fact, I got one of my brands here underneath the shirt that I'm wearing. No matter where I'm at, I'm always wearing a brand. I'm wearing my brand, my family brand. Same thing with the kid. Everywhere they go, they have a brand, and it's going to warrant a person to ask, "Hey, what is that? What is Paylock Health?" That gives my daughter an opportunity to say, "Hey, listen, I own my own health and nutrition company, and 14 years old. My son, Caden Teaches." Well, what is Caden Teaches? What is that big bus you have? My name is Caden. I'm 13 years old. I'm a high school graduate now at 13, and I teach kids about financial literacy with the bus that I bought. So your brand is going to precede how people take you. And if I can segue a little bit, and I think this might help some viewers. A lot of people like to get nonprofit businesses. That's their main business or that's the startup. Now, nonprofits are good when leveraged the proper way, but nonprofit is just that, not for profit. But when you leverage a for-profit business and you create social proof, then it's easy to leverage the nonprofit because your brand is strong and solid that now it's easy to acquire capital from the nonprofit. So that's how LinkedIn plays a big role also. So people just hear our brands. If we use our nonprofit arm, it's easy to grab capital that way because the brand was strong.
I love it. Yeah, branding is so key. So I don't know if you watched the show Game of Thrones. I was a big Game of Thrones, and they had all these different families that, and every family had their own crest, colors, and saying. And I think, and I told my wife, I said we need to do that for our family because we get out of that. If you're trying to build generational wealth, having a brand, having a saying. If you watch the show, the late said the Lannisters always pay their debts, and that's just something they were known for. And then everyone in the whole country knew that's what this family stood for. And the family believed it. So it dictated, even with we're long gone and we have grandkids, great grandkids, that stands, right? Those words stand for the test of time. And to me, brand is so powerful, especially it should be in our community. You think about plans. You think about the Chinese, they think 100-year plans, right? And building for their families. And so like you, I thought about with my brothers and sisters, we create 100-year plan. Yeah, so we start talking about little dollars, but you know what? This is 100-year plan. So we're like when you play that longer game, that infinite game they talk about, then you're not as worried about that smaller stuff and you focus more on what you're building toward the long-term goals. So definitely I'm a big proponent of family branding and I appreciate you mentioning that. Also, you talked about like how you can stand out from the crowd and that brand is so powerful. Building that over time and be consistent with it. Like you said, you're wearing the colors of your brand even now. So I love that aspect of it. Yeah. So if you look at the branding aspect, we talked about building it and we talked about the branding. Now we're going to talk about, okay, then how do you blow it up? How the three B's, how do you scale it? Talk about that. When you started, you get through the hustle and grinding of all of it. But then now you're trying to scale it. What are your thoughts around that when it comes to building a business that doesn't need a lot of your manpower but can start sustaining itself?
Mhm. That's a great question that you asked. One thing with the brand is, let's just use a big brand like McDonald's for an example. Your kid, before they can speak, understood what those golden arches were. You're driving down the highway, you see that big sign that was like 2 miles high. first thing you do is kicking the back of the seat. Daddy, stop. Let's get a Happy Meal because of that brand. So that's the same way, even in a conceptual business, in the genesis of that business, you got to put your brand out front. You got to throw it the bat signal so that everybody knows this is your brand. Then a lot of times you have to build up to that brand, but the brand is the preface for your business.
Mhm.
So like when you see my logos, as you see, that's one of my logos there, Generational Wealth Academy. So when you see that, it's wow, I've heard about that. I've seen that. And then everything builds up to that. So in the beginning, you may well say, Sean, I don't see myself as a big business. I got a nice brand. I have a nice logo. People starting to identify with it. Put the brand out in advance. That brand always goes out before you. So when you show up, it's like, that here I am. And that's how you build a skill your business. Your brand always stays in front of you, ahead of you. You build up to that. When you get there,
Mhm.
push the forward, make the brand bigger. If you need to make changes to the logo, to the imaging, continue scaling that up. What you do when you're scaling your whole business or your brand, it has to be, people should see your name, your logo alone, and it identifies who you are. That is your DNA of your business. You should be able to say, hey, listen, man, when I hear about Theo Harvey, man, I already know he's going to have these dope videos. He gives great content. He does superior interview and podcasting. That should precede you before you even there. That makes sense. So that's one with a brand, and then you got to protect that brand. The, and I'm gonna throw a person out there. The girl from the Fugees back in the day,
Lauren Hill.
um,
Lauren Hill.
Lauren Lauren Hill. She has a brand. She has a brand of being late. Okay.
That's you know what, and you know what, you said the right thing because the first thing when you said Lauren Hill, the first thing I thought was being late. And so to your point, that's what a brand is. It's the first thing you think about when you put out a name. Like Will Smith, he had a brand, it got shattered, so it's a different brand now. And
Right.
so that what's the first thing comes to your mind when you think of Will Smith?
Yeah,
And that goes show you what happened to his brand.
absolutely. So that's critically important. You got to protect that thing. It's supporting who you are, your name, like I said, your DNA. And when people hear, I went to an auto parts store yesterday. When I went in, the lady saw one of my brands. She started asking me questions. And I said, have you seen a green and blue bus on her in the media lately? She said, yeah. I said, that's my son. All I had to do is like colors.
Mhm.
And they say about a bus. And she automatically said, she said, Katie Negro Friday. That's my son. So again, color, branding, imaging. When you think of yellow and red, you think of McDonald's. When you think of orange and white, you think of Home Depot. So it's the same thing, but just like that brand can be strong, it can also be weak. So you make you, and you're not in a position where people say, "Oh man, here comes that company." But it's different companies that I've dealt with as, "Oh man, they're affiliated with this company. I just don't even want to deal with them," even though they felt to be a good asset, but the overall brand.
No. You hit the nail on the head. I think people don't realize you have to be really intentional about building your brand. And because it's so easy, if you don't do anything with the brand, it will start to collapse. And it's basic physics. There's so many different ways, entropy. There's so many different ways for things to break down. So if you just
Mhm.
do nothing, it's always going to break down. So you always have to be intentional on how you're building your brand, to your point, how you represent yourself, how you communicate, show up on time so they don't call you late. You know, and it's what they said is it takes decades to create a great name, but 1 minute to destroy it. The Will Smith example, right? He had a great brand for a long time. And that one incident, if you don't know what we're talking about, go look it up. But that one incident basically shattered his whole image. And just like that. No, that I love that. So if we go back to the scaling conversation, so that precedes you, right? That brand that's talking for you before you even show up. So that does help, awareness builds out that awareness of who you are, that familiarity with people understanding you. If you look at the operation side, how do you think about that? I think about the four leverages. You got the people, you have, people to do the work for you. You can use automation product to do it for you. You can, or code technology, media now, right? Social media. We can like we record this, and you'll probably show the links I shared are mine. This can live on and give people more exposure. And then capitals. Those are like the four leverages that help you build your business up. How do you think about scaling and blowing up your businesses as you're moving on and doing different things?
That's a real good point. You hear the term scaling a lot, generic, but here's where a lot of people falling short. They say, I want to scale my business, but it's only them. There's a process. You got to first build a business, then you got to grow a business, then we scale the business. So scaling the business is where you really get into systems and you systemize everything. And now the business can start operating with or without you. So it goes back to cash flow quadrant. You got the E and the S side where you still got to be there to make things happen. But when you're under B and the I side, it's automatic. It's going to happen whether you're there or not. So it's kind of like you just said, leave something to itself, it's going to deteriorate automatically. So you have to, like you said, put maintenance to it just to maintain it and keep it from deteriorating. So the same thing there when it comes to scaling the business, relationships. It takes relationships to build leaders. Now, sometimes people say, listen, I'm a great leader. How do you know that? Here's how you know if you're a leader. Most people say, Sean, if I develop another leader, I'm a great leader. Nope. That can be a fluke. That could have just happened by happenstance. It's not until your leaders develop multiple leaders are you an effective leader. As young
Mm,
people say, leadership is influence.
mhm.
If you say, listen, Sean, I don't have have anybody following me. You just taking a long walk. That makes
Exactly.
I don't want a lot of followers because if I have a lot of followers behind me, I'm just building in between building and growing a business. When I have leaders, that's when I'm able to scale. That's when I can say, listen, that's not my strong area. Put this leader in charge of that. This leader takes care of this leader takes care of that. Because the biggest thing you want to do is you want to put a lot of smart people around you. Put a team around you, more people. Or if you're the big fish in the pond, you got problems. Now, in my field, sorry, I'm the big fish, but I quickly know how to get out of that little pond and go into bigger lakes, oceans, and rivers where I'm around whales, sharks, and now I'm the little guppy. And I get that information to come back to my feeder pond. But again, information in, it's like Thanksgiving dinner next week. If you eat a big Thanksgiving dinner, keep eating, and you don't eliminate, you're going to get constipated and something's going to go wrong. It's the same thing with information. You can have information constipation. So you want to be able to get information. So people say, listen, Sean, you give out a lot of free content. I just wouldn't do that. Here's the problem. If you feel that you're giving away too much free content, you don't have enough content.
Mm, mhm.
I got to get rid of this stuff. It's like
Yeah.
if you squeeze the orange, you're going to get orange juice. If
Yep.
you squeeze an apple, you get apple juice. If somebody squeeze you, what's going to come out of you is what's in you. But
Yep.
so in you, when you're in a position to get knowledge or give knowledge or wisdom, it's all for naught.
The abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? And so having so much of that insight, and you just mentioned like a couple of books. So Rich Dad Poor Dad, you talked about the E and I quadrant. If you haven't read that book, that really details like how you can build a, a scalable business. The Rich Dad Poor Dad seminal book. I think we all read it in the 90s. And then did you mention John Maxwell as
Yeah.
well about leadership? Yeah, so that's great guru as well in that space. He talks about the law of the cap, right? So you talked about leaders, you can't lead anyone at the level of your cap. So if you're at a 7 leadership, you can only lead 6, 5s, and 4 leaders. You can't lead a level 7 or 8 leader. You just won't talk on the same levels. So everything you talked about, you can tell that the abundance of your heart because you read those books and that knowledge set is coming out, and that's the content and the value you can bring to the marketplace. So definitely, this is something that I'm a big believer in too, as you can see. Let's get into quick question. This is a short round, just yes or no, kind of quick answer, just to get to know you a little bit better. Yeah, if you weren't an entrepreneur, what would you do?
As a kid, I always wanted to be a neurosurgeon.
Okay, that's a different one. I wanted to be an astronaut, but you guess what? You can still be a neurosurgeon. You never know.
True.
Up top is UT University is out there, so that's
Right.
awesome. Tell me one of your best vacation spots. You like that?
Oh, man, that's a hard one. I would say Thailand.
Mm,
Thailand is a real sweet spot. My wife and I went there about 4 years ago, spent some time out there. But more recently, earlier in the summer, we went and lived in the country of Panama for a month.
oh wow.
Took the whole family, took mom-in-law, and just had a blast. So between Panama and Thailand, still gonna have to say Thailand. But then in Dubai if I didn't say Dubai.
Yeah.
So that's a horror. But if I had to buckle down and pick one, I would say Thailand.
Yeah. I see the real estate educators on here. My brother, he went to Dubai. I visited him, was amazed and had a great time out there. So definitely Abu Dhabi, Dubai.
Yeah.
Yeah, great city. So definitely. And last but not least, what do you guys do for fun as you're building this business with your family? You know, they're around you, they're doing their thing. You talked hinted at a little bit, travel, maybe one of it, but what do you guys do to build enjoyment with the family and the time that you guys spend together?
That's it. Our hot button is having both time and money freedoms. A lot of times you'll know people who have a lot of money, but they don't have time. And then we know a lot of people who have a lot of time, but no money. It's when you marry the two together, and that's what's called lifestyle. And then a part of that lifestyle is we enjoy traveling, we enjoy spending family time. And one thing I learned from my parents, specifically my dad growing up, we would always meet the need. I asked my dad, I said, Dad, how do you know which kid you love the most? And he said, you always give the most love to the sickest kid. And
Mhm.
I said, now this doesn't mean physically sick, but it's what kid needs more of your heart right now. So what I would always notice growing up, my parents would spend family time. My dad may say, hey, look, I'm just going to spend time with the boys. He may say, I'm just going to spend time with my daughter. My mom may say, I'm just going to spend time with you, Sean, and leave your older brother and your younger sister home. It was always a dynamic where the whole blend of the family. So that way you can always get all the quality time that you needed. So that's what we've adopted in my current situation in the household now is that we just cater to whatever that person's love language is.
Mm.
My son, he's acts of service. My daughter, she's quality time. Tara, she's all five love languages. So we just cater to each one of those things. And we may say, hey, look, we know that Kennedy enjoys this. So the whole family, we're just going to shift all our energy to doing this on Saturday. And we differentiate family time and business time. A lot of times people think that we're just busy to look at the kids and see they run six-figure companies. But here's the deal. They're kids.
Yeah.
They really do like a ton of work. Any given week, they probably work maybe 4 hours a week tops. That's considering speaking events, maybe packing some products or taking an interview or something like that, but no more than 4 to 5 hours a week do they put in. But as employees, we tend to think, look, I work 40, 50, maybe 60 hours a week. So if these kids are running companies, of course they have to be working 60 to 80 hours a week. But just the opposite is true because that's the point of being an entrepreneur is to both have time and money free. It's not about always being in a struggle. Most people think you always have to struggle, or is this generation like to say, we're in the grind, or I got to hustle. Those words I really don't like.
Mm.
Here's why. The word hustle, by definition, means hurried bodily movement. A hamster on a wheel is hurried and he's creating bodily movement and he's not going anywhere.
Mm.
The word grind, by definition, means to reduce to its lowest part. I don't want to grind my life away. I don't want to just be working because listen, everybody talks about hard work. Hard work pays off. No, it doesn't. Hard work kills you.
Mm.
Smart work pays off. Because listen, if hard work was the key to success, and every construction worker out here would be very well.
Mm. Mhm.
Because construction workers work very hard. It's not about working hard, it's about leveraging. I always give the analogy of I can go out and cut my grass with a pair of scissors. I'll be out there and 3 months later still cutting the grass. I can get a push more and cut my grass 2 hours. Or I can get a riding more, maybe cut it 15 to 20 minutes. Or I can really leverage my time and just pay someone else to cut grass.
There you go. There you go. Leverage at its finest, right? So, John, this has been great. I really appreciate your time and your availability and just dropping some nuggets here for other entrepreneurs. Yeah, where can we see you speaking or Caden speaking? I would love to promote that as well.
Gotcha. Both Kennedy and Caden, they're going to be speaking coming up December. A lot of things, but the one biggest one, they're going to be at Gas South Arena, speaking in the arena on December the 2nd. It's going to be Children's Business Fest. All the information can be found on my social medias, over their social medias. I can be found at Dr. Sean J. Harris, all platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. My daughter Kennedy can be found at KLock Health. That's KLOCK Health. All platforms. My son Caden teaches. That's CADEN teaches on all platforms. Both kids are on LinkedIn as well. We're very easy to find. We're always out and about somewhere in the community.
Well, hey, thank you for your time, Sean. I really appreciate it. And thanks for giving up so much information. So definitely, I'm sure we'll connect again soon. So you be blessed, brother. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Take care.